Hi, everyone. So welcome to DockerCon 2022 and welcome to our talk. So today we are going to talk about what is the best container security workflow for your organization. And we're going to share some insight into the container security. But yeah, before we start, let's have some introduction. So my name is Fani Bahar. I am currently a product manager for Snyk Container, and I'm with this lovely lady, Hadar. So I pass it to you.
Thank you, Fani. Hey, everyone. My name is Hadar, and I'm also a product manager for Snyk Container. So why we're having this talk? Let's take a look at two personas we usually see in an organization. Developers, they want to make sure the code they write is secure and their application runs properly. DevSecOps, they want to make sure that everything that is deployed into the production is secured. Companies often see that container security has become the topic that most developers tend to avoid. So in this talk, we want to discuss how container security can fit different organizations and share best practices to help you identify which workflow can suit your needs. But first, let's discuss the challenges container security brings into the table. And trust me, there are quite a few. First, vulnerability overload. A container image can sometimes introduce 900 vulnerabilities or even more. How do we deal with such an amount, and how do we know what to fix first? Not everyone understands the concept of containers. Users need to know the ins and outs of containers. There's a lack of knowledge to mitigate issues identified, whether it's knowing what to fix first or how to fix it. Users need extra information into the details of every vulnerability and how it impacts their software. Additionally, it's not clear who is even responsible for container security. Is it the responsibility of the developer or the security team or the DevOps? It also adds friction and slows down development cycles. There is something else that needs to be taken into account rather than just writing code and pushing it to production. And last but not least, there's a difficulty on integrating a security tool to existing systems and workflows, at which point we need to integrate in order to be protected. And also gaining buy-in from developers and interfering with existing workflow and processes is not an easy task.
So as you guys know, Hadar already shared all the challenges. So now we want to kind of like give you an insight how to actually overcome these challenges before you kind of like implement any container security solution to your organization. So the first thing is really define your DevSecOps maturity. So the reason is we want to make sure as an organization you understand the maturity, so then you can also find the balance between the development and the security. So currently we are using these two metrics, development process metrics, and then also security access. So the reason here, every organization will have a different resources, and then you will also have a different need of the container security. So then by knowing where you are, it's actually good to kind of come up with the strategy to have the container security. So we start from the very left side. We have the startup Sally that basically they are still figuring out their development processes. There's also still figuring out their security needs. They're still figuring out how to actually solve any container security. So here they are still kind of not knowing how to start. So they always asking, just tell me where to start, like how we can actually implementing it as soon as possible. And then if you move out a bit, so you have some organization that is already in a scaling up. So they already have like a settled development processes. They already understand actually what they need in terms of like the workflow. And then now they are start wondering, can we actually improve our security? So they want to make sure they can learn from any other organization out there. So they want to learn the best practices, how to make sure that actually they can implement or improve their security as soon as possible. And then if we move a little bit to the right, you will see like the company that has more maturity in their security. So for example, banker bill, like most of the bank or any financial institution, they always have security on top of their mind. So most likely they already have maturity in their security, but they still need to work on in terms of their development processes. So in this situation, sometimes they are wondering how we can actually provide any solution that will also help our developer and make sure that the security is also part of the developer responsibility. And then if you move to the top right, you have the tech giant that basically they already stable in their security, they already mature in the security, they also already mature in development processes, they already know what works the best for them, so they just want to improve it. They already know what is the security needs that they need, how to actually even measure their security or define any benchmark for any container security. So for them is more on finding the product that will fit with their needs and the organization. So yeah, first understand your DevSecOps maturity. The second one is also start asking how actually your organization operate the security and the development. So the reason we are asking this, so as an organization, you can also start defining any strategy for container security adoption, like how you need to put your effort and your resources for increasing the adoption. So for example, if you operate as an autonomous team, so meaning that you have a lot of different application team, and then the application team is not only writing a code for building the application, but they are also taking a responsibility for the security. They are taking the responsibility for picking their base image, understanding the security of their application and also their images. So that's actually the autonomous team. Or you are operating in DevOps or AppSec centric. So meaning that you have a lot of application team that really focus on building the application, but then you have a DevSecOps, DevOps and application security team that really define the process and really define the container that you have, the base image that you need to have, and then make sure the security of your image that you will deploy to the production. So in this situation, you need to understand, like when you pick any security solution, you in autonomous, you need to make sure that you find a solution that works really well with all the application team in your organization. Or you can actually have DevOps AppSec centric and find a solution that can actually work well in a centralized situation. The third one is also asking about how actually your company work with the container. So the reason here is because we know there are different organizations, they have a different processes to build a container. And then in this case, we also need to understand how basically the base image actually pick in order to build the image, the container image itself. So as you can see here, there is also two different models. So the first one is the autonomous team. So basically this autonomous team is the team will pick any base image that they want to use, and they need to make sure that every team has the relevant tools to always pick the right base image. And also you need to find a solution that makes sure that they can secure the image from the user layer interaction. And also the solution need to make sure that each team is scanning the image every time before they push it to the production. So basically in this autonomous team, the team has the entire development from coding or container lifecycle, like selecting the base image, securing the image, deploying the image, and finally build their own image before deploying to production. Or you are having this common base. So your organization has specific team that basically building the base image, or might be even picking the public base image, and then make sure you maintain the latest version, maintain the version with the less vulnerability. So in this situation, you need to find a solution that makes sure that the team has the easy way to build and pick the base image, and then also make sure that every team can actually scan the user layer before they push the container into production. All right, and then the last step is really how do you actually envision the container security workflow. So I think in the beginning, Hadar already mentioned, we need to find the solution that actually fit to your software development processes, rather than you actually redesign your process in order to fit with your security solution. So I think from Snyk, we are very opinionated that in order to secure your container, definitely you need to also secure your code base. You need to secure your application. You need to secure your open source library that you use. So we always want to make sure that we start from the very left. So at the very left, basically, we want to make sure any security solution that you pick can actually provide the security from the local environment that the developer use. Like it can be probably running through command line interface or using the Docker desktop integration. And then if we move a little bit to the right, we also need to make sure if the solution has the ability to basically scan the Docker file in any SCM that your application, your team actually using. So then at least we can have a initial vulnerability issue based on the base image that mentioned in the Docker file. And then if we move again to a little bit to the right, so here is more on make sure if, let's say, you already have a very stable CI/CD processes, and then you have a requirement that the security team want to make sure that anything that is deployed to production is already past the security. So here in this case, find a solution that also fit in your CI/CD pipeline. Or we can also move a bit to the right. So let's say you are using specific container registry, can be public container registry or private container registry, can be a Docker Hub or ECR or Artifactory. So find also the solution that basically can integrate with any container registry that your organization use. So then you can also make sure the container security in your container registry. And then I think lastly is definitely from the most important part, which is the production side. We want to make sure that you always protect your runtime, protect any images that actually running in your production. So try to find any solution that actually fit with any container orchestrator that your organization is using. So once you answer all these questions, then you can actually start find the adoption strategy for any container security that tools that you define. So in the next slide, I will give you an example of autonomous workflow that basically one of the practices workflow that most of our customers using. They basically want to have the integration with their CI/CD pipeline. So imagine that we have this persona. So first of all, the developer or any security champion, they want to make sure that your build will be break in all high severity issue. So then we can prevent any issue being pushed to production environment. But at the same time, the same person also want to make sure that we always monitor any base image vulnerability or application vulnerability. So then you can always notify if any new vulnerability discovered. So the workflow looks pretty similar like this. Like I know this is probably the simplified version, but let's take a look. Like the developer, they will merge their code to Git repository. And then we have a Snyk Jenkins plugin, and then we will, if we don't have any, we don't find any problem, then the Jenkins job is successful. And then we will pass this snapshot of the image, and then we will always like monitor it. And when the moment we find a new issue, we will notify the developer, and then the developer can actually merge the fix, and then they can actually follow the life cycle of this workflow. But let's say that you build it and then you find some issue. So then in this case, Jenkins will like, okay, we will not deploy it. We will find the issue, and then the developer actually can get the report of what is the issue, the vulnerability issue in this image. And then here, Snyk will also give you a recommendation. If Snyk not providing any recommendation, definitely the security team and application team, they can actually discuss how to proceed from here. But the majority of the time, we provide some recommendation how to fix this vulnerability. So then in this case, the developer can actually fix it, and then the life cycle start again. You merge, and then you build it, and then when everything's fine, your build is deployed successfully. So this is actually one of the example how you adopt specific container security solution into your CI/CD pipeline. So I will pass it to Hadar.
Thank you so much, Fani. Okay, so let's take a look at the common base case where Fani discussed about a few slides back, where we have one team, usually the DevOps, which creates custom-based images for developer teams to use, so they know they're building upon an approved and secured image. And on the other side, we have the developers, which build upon the custom-based images, but in reality, they are only responsible for the container, for the security of things they add to a container. So it starts with selecting the appropriate base image based on the needs of the team. The next step is adding or removing packages, adding internal tools, standardizing the image. And once the image is ready, it's being scanned using a container security tool like Snyk. If the image has vulnerabilities, then they should be addressed and fixed. But if not, it's ready to be used by the developers. Once the image is pushed to the registry of the developer, and Fani, if you can click another. Thanks. Okay. So once the image is pushed to the registry of the developer selects the appropriate custom-based image that was built by the DevOps. Then he adds his packages for his own needs and additional application layers and scans the image once it's ready using a container security tool. If it has vulnerabilities, then they should be addressed and fixed. But then another question arises. How would a developer know which custom-based image he should be using? Let's take a look at the next slide. Okay, so in this slide, we can see base image recommendation advice. If you scan an image using Snyk, which is a container security tool, you can get base image recommendation upgrades. On the left here, we can see recommendation upgrades for public-based images. So for example, the DevOps from the previous slide, if they scan a Ruby Docker image, they can get recommendations to use a more secured image that contains less vulnerabilities. And users can get this feature for free using the Docker scan command or using the Snyk product. Then for the developers from the previous slide, Snyk also provides recommendation upgrades for custom-based images. So on the right, you can see recommendation advice for upgrading the base image into a more secured image based on the image tag. Okay, so after everything we have discussed, these are the key takeaways we want you to take when it comes to securing containers. First, embed your security tool into your existing workflows you have in the organization. This is the right way to gain buy-in from other teams that are already used to work in some specific ways or processes. For example, if you want developers to act on security results as they work, you need to put the data in the tools they already use, like the IDE. Second thing is automate when possible. Automation makes it easy to deal with scale, define rules to prevent issues from proceeding further in the software development lifecycle, like Fani introduced in the CI/CD pipeline. For example, automate the creation of fixed pull requests to update images to a less vulnerable version. Last but not least, focus on the fix advice and remediation. At the end of the day, developers are the ones ultimately tasked with fixing the issues. It is important to give them advice on how to pick a more secure container image so that they can minimize the number of vulnerabilities that makes it into production, where we usually see that the majority of vulnerabilities come from the base image. Moreover, providing additional vulnerability information such as the severity, exploit maturity, and more can all eventually help them fix the vulnerabilities within the image. That's it for today. Thank you, everyone.